G'day guys, Mackie with the Outer Circle, and I have my normal microphone back, which is a good thing. Alright, so, the other day, one of the people who views the channel asked what the actual spread out is of people playing different factions and what the sales are. Now, whilst I can't give you sales, I did spend a whole week going over different pages, forums, and putting up posts asking for people to tell me what faction they actually played. I also got people to put up polls on Facebook, all that kind of thing, pulled it all in together, and this is the data I've got. Now, there are people who have multiple armies, and where they have multiple armies, I've put it down. So if they say, I've got a Marine army, I have a Chaos army, I have an Imperial Guard army, that's one tick in each of the boxes. Simples. Now, where someone has said that they have a Thousand Suns army or a Death Guard army, that kind of thing, I haven't counted it as a different faction. I've just lumped them all in together under Chaos Space Marines. Why? Because, well, they are. So, a few things to look at. First, we have the breakdown of all factions. Believe it or not, the most people play Chaos. I was shocked by this. I knew we had a lot of people who play, but I honestly thought that Space Marines would be the biggest faction, because for years and years and years, that's what we've been told, and that's what we're seeing for years. We're seeing so many people on that fucking Space Marine bandwagon, so many Space Marine models just pushed at us by Games Workshop. We all just assumed it would be Space Marines, right? Well, it's not, but there's more to this story, and we'll go into that down the track. Now, second biggest faction after Chaos, again, not one I picked, Imperial Guard. And I'm not talking Trader Guard. They've actually got their own section, but it's much smaller down here. And funny enough, out of Imperial Guard, a lot of people play Krieg specifically. They just really had to mention that to me, which I found interesting. Going down from there is Space Marines. And the next biggest one, funny enough, was not one I picked. Tyranids. Tyranids have a really strong following. After that, of course, we have Orcs, another big following, and a surprising following for Mechanicus. We're not talking 30k here, we're talking the 40k Adeptus Mechanicus and whatever the other one is. Sorry, it's just I've had a total mental blank, but the other Mechanicum faction, the priesthood one, yeah, they're their own little thing. I also put down the Militarium Tempestus as its own thing down here. Now, Cult Mechanicus, that's the one. Alright, so Cult Mechanicus and Militarium Tempestus are two factions which just have fuck all in them. Same as Deathwatch. These are lists that don't really deserve to be an army on their own and really are only good for a small skirmish game, because just too much stuff is getting duplicated out of the lists. And I think as a consequence of that very thing, that's why there's so few people playing Tempestus and Deathwatch. Knights has its own problems, because Knights are, well, they're fucking Knights. Nobody likes playing against Knights. Nobody enjoys it. Knights are cool when it's like Knight versus Knight jousting, that kind of thing, and they're fun in Epic 40k, but 28mm Knights, yeah, nah, they're fucked. So, moving on from there. Necrons, popular. Dark Eldar, more popular than Eldar, which I found interesting. And Harlequins. Now, Harlequins and Yanid, or dual faction Eldar, I've just lumped them all in together. And again, like with the Deathwatch, there's not enough variety in there of units, I don't think. And this is totally supposition on my behalf, just taking a guess, taking a punt, that because they don't have many units and much variety, people just aren't interested in them. They're the sort of army that they look cool, they're awesome in little skirmish games, they're a really fun thing to build and paint, but when it comes down to it as an army, they just don't perform. Sisters of Battle. Yeah, sorry guys. There's so few of you, it's not funny. This tiny little bar here. But, you know, you have twice the following of knights. You have pretty much 2/3, maybe just half of the following of Tau. You're pretty much on par with Space Wolves, Grey Knights. Blood Angels aren't far ahead either. So they're happy to build all these new sculpts and go out of their way making marine parts for Blood Angels and Grey Knights and Space Wolves and fill whole armies of new miniatures. As far as I can see, though, there's just as much demand for Sisters of Battle. So I find it strange that Games Workshop doesn't want to invest anything into them. So that's just the raw data. What I decided to also do was to lump all the factions in together and see what we actually got. So if you're going by raw factions, Marines will pip everyone. So remember how I said earlier there was more to it than just Chaos having more followers than Marines? Here it is. As you can see, Marines and Inquisition, I've included that in there. Specifically, we're talking like Grey Knights here. Death Watch, those two sort of sub-factions that work for the Inquisition. They've all been lumped in together. So, in some ways, this is falsely portraying it, because if you're going to do that, you know, they're pretty left of centre, the Death Watch and the Grey Knights, as far as Marines go. There's, again, not much scope to them. The Eldar / Ynnari, only about half as popular as either Chaos or Marines are on their own. Chaos Demons are actually rather unpopular as a faction, in comparison to Chaos especially. I think people loved... I'm going to go out on a limb here and say pretty much most Chaos players are like myself. They loved Demons when they were a part of the Chaos Space Marine book. And now that Demons are on their own, they're less enjoyable. They were just more fun when you could summon them in as like a Demon Star, that kind of thing. Tyranids, very popular. They're the second most popular faction in a lot of ways. Having the Genestealer cults is really awesome, but there's very little diversity to them again. You're talking an army which is made up of like 4 or 5 separate units, and then all the rest of it's just stolen from Astra Militarum, Imperial Guard, what have you. Again, not super popular because, going out on a whim here, not enough variety to them. I also will admit they're not helped by the price. The price is disgusting for Genestealer cults, at least here in Australia, and they cost at least double what I'd be willing to pay for them. And this is me, someone who has a lot of Forge World stuff. Like, you know, I've got 8,000 points of Thousand Suns, I've got 3/4 of the Primarch models. I will not buy Genestealer cults because I like the sculpts a lot, but I have deemed them too expensive. And I do not want to encourage Games Workshop with that kind of crap. Knights, again, yep, small faction. Sisters of Battle, bigger than Knights. They're still bigger than Knights. Necrons, Orcs, yep. So, really, a lot of the game is these groups here. Most people are playing in this area. Specifically, Space Marines, Eldar, Chaos, and Guard. And then, sort of the tier down from there, you're looking at Tyranids and Orcs. What can I extrapolate from this, exactly? Well, I can't tell you sales, but I'm going to take a guess here that Marines are selling the most. And the reason why, I'm going to put it down to the fact that with Marines, you can buy a Dark Angels army. You can buy a Blood Angels army. But if you don't want to play them as Blood Angels or Dark Angels, you can just play them as another Space Marine chapter. It doesn't matter if they're painted in a certain way, it won't really affect you. Whereas with an army like Chaos, well, you can't really use your Thousand Suns as Khorne Berserkers. I've seen people do it, and they look as retarded as you think when they do it. But, you know, there's no... And it doesn't work, I guess is what I'm getting at. Like, Marines have a lot of versatility. On top of that, Marines' armor, especially with the Primaris Marines, is not actually that over the top in general. Obviously, there are exceptions like Stern Guard, Blood Angels, Space Wolves, where they're covered in shit. But generic power armor is very bland. And I know a lot of people, including myself, would prefer to use bland armor to create Chaos Space Marines than Chaos Space Marines shitty kits that are 20 odd years old. So again, you're going to have people who are making Chaos armies pulling models from the Imperial range. Chaos's vehicles, like the Predator, Land Raider, and Rhino, are all Marine vehicles, just with an extra sprue thrown in, which has some Chaos shit on it. So again, Marines, a lot of versatility, a lot you can do with the kits. And Marine factions, unlike with Chaos at the moment we're seeing like Plague Marines and Thousand Suns, and they're really iconic, and they're very much, you can only sort of build them in a few set ways, and they're going to have a very distinctive look about them. With Marines, you've got a lot more variety of how you can build them at the same time, where you swap out your torsos, what weapons you arm them with, that kind of thing, and you can really tailor them to suit you. So I would dare say that Marine sales are definitely beating other people's sales. On top of that, the cost factor, like, you want to collect a Space Marine army, it's so much cheaper to get into than a fucking Tyranid army. Like, Tyranid players and Orc players especially, because they're using Horde armies, it takes a long time and a lot of money to collect, build, and paint all those models. So they're just not going to sell as many full armies because, well, it's just too hard. Like, you're paying the same amount for one Carnifex as you're paying for a whole tactical squad with all the endless variety they come with and all the spare parts they come with that they can put on any other model. And the Carnifex is like a fixed build, which, yeah, you can change out a few of its arms and such, but half the options that it used to have are gone, and, the kit came out back in 4th edition. Most of the Tyranid kits came out in 4th edition. The arseholes at Games Workshop won't update them either. As for Astra Militarum, Forge World and Krieg is making up literally half of this. Is Forge World and Krieg. It's crazy, the amount of people playing Astra Militarum. And out of the rest, there's a lot of people who specified they were playing Armoured Company. So, specifically. And there was a few, Elysians in there, and KDM players, and that kind of thing. But, yeah, most people are either playing Krieg, or they're playing, really tank-heavy forces. Things like Veterans and Chimeras, and lots of Lehman Russ battle tanks, and there's Flyer Swarms, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, really interesting stuff to see. The Dark Elder, very popular faction. But again, I think that they're sort of one of those armies where people are buying them from Games Workshop. They start building them or paying them, they play a few games, they don't enjoy it, then they just sell them on eBay for cheap. Someone else picks them up. So the amount of people actually buying directly from Games Workshop, even via third parties, is probably not that high for them. Again, this is all just me pulling results out of my arse or trying to figure out what may be the causes behind these out of my arse. So yeah, all it comes down to in the end is Marines. Most kits, most diversity, most loved by Games Workshop. They're probably selling the most kits as well. And it's sort of a self-fulfilling cycle, the Oribus, if you will. Because the more kits they release for Marines, the more they suck the Marine dick, the more Matt Ward's writing Marine books, Games Workshop is going to be selling more Marines. And the more that Games Workshop fucks over Chaos, fucks over Nids, fucks over Orcs, the less of those armies they're going to be selling. If you're an Orc player, you know how long you've had the Orc buggy for? There are people who listen to this channel, I know, who were there when the Orc buggy first came out. It was the early fucking 90s. The Orc buggy, it can be, in some cases, twice the age of the people playing the game. That's insane. And yet, Space Marines, every time there's a new codex comes out, they get a new tactical squad. Without fail, every time there's a new tactical squad. I even showed it in one video. I showed the evolution of the tactical Marine, and every single edition, new tactical squad. It was crazy. And yet, go over to Orcs, yep, here's a buggy from Gorgamorka from 1993. Eldar, all the Phoenix Lords. most of the Aspect Warriors, well, I should rephrase that. Some of the Aspect Warriors are from 2nd edition, a lot are from 3rd, and the rest are from 4th. And all the Phoenix Lords are from 2nd edition. Yes, 2nd edition. With Chaos, the older characters are being cycled out, but we still have Fabius Bile, the out-of-production Doom Rider, Abaddon, definitely all 2nd ed models. The 3rd ed models, we're talking Araman, Khan, that kind of thing. They were 2nd ed as well, but we're talking tail end. They've just got new plastics to update them. Lucius and Typhus, they're both 3.5. So right at the end of 3rd edition with the release of the 3.5 Codex, that's when they came out. Same as Noise Marines. Oh, Noise Marines. There's another one for you. The Noise Marines make up a fucking small amount of Chaos Space Marine players. In fact, the Chaos Space Marine players, off the top of my head, when I polled them, Nurgle had the most, followed by Zinch, followed by Khorne, followed by Iron Warriors, followed by Night Lords, followed by Alpha Legion, followed by, I think it was Red Corsairs. And then right down the bottom we have Noise Marines, Black Legion. And it's like, yeah, Black Legion is got the least people playing it. Why? Because it's fucking boring, has nothing interesting about it. Like, at least the Sons of Horus in 30k are interesting and diverse. Yeah, not so for 40k. Black Legion is just like vanilla, bland. And vanilla bland is fine when you play Space Marines, because you get chapter tactics, combat tactics, they should know no fear. Plus you'll get, generic chapter traits. This is all, of course, talking 7th ed. Things are different in 8th edition. And how 8th edition is going to change this up, I don't know. Primaris Marines is probably going to blow the Space Marine lead out further. The Nurgle players are still going to be Nurgle players. I don't think too many people are going to join up to Nurgle because of the new kits, especially seeing how many of the new kits are being sold online. Primaris kits are being swooped right up. The Plague Marines, you can get them cheap as chips. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks to our commenter. I've completely forgotten your name, dude, and I could not track down your comment where you asked for this information. But, I've done my best. So, anyone who's actually interested and wants the numbers or anything like that, I can just send you a copy of this Excel file through emails. You can contact us at theoutercircle30k@gmail.com. And I'm back with the Outer Circle. See you all next time.